March 28th, 2025. Just before lunchtime, central Myanmar unraveled in less than a minute. A slumbering fault line tore open without warning, unleashing a magnitude 7.7 earthquake that shattered cities from Mandalay to Bangkok and left nearly 5,000 dead. This wasn't just another tremor. It was the day Southeast Asia changed forever. Beneath the devastation lay a truth few realized. The ancient Sagaing fault had been loading energy for generations, slicing through a region racing toward modernity but built on borrowed time. Could this disaster have been prevented? And what still lurks beneath the surface, waiting for the next rupture? At 12:50 p.m. local time, the ground beneath central Myanmar heaved with a force not seen in decades. In Mandalay, glass shattered before anyone could react. Roads split open, tossing cars sideways. Entire neighborhoods crumbled in seconds. The shaking reached a level scientists call extreme. Buildings, bridges, even centuries-old pagodas collapsed as if made of sand. People ran into the streets, dodging falling bricks and power lines. Fires erupted where gas lines ruptured, spreading through blocks already flattened by the quake. In less than a minute, the city's familiar skyline vanished under a cloud of dust. The epicenter, just outside Mandalay, registered a magnitude 7.7, strong enough to be felt hundreds of kilometers away. For thousands, the world changed before the clock struck 1. The shockwave didn't stop at the city limits. Across Myanmar and beyond, the disaster was only beginning. Beneath the surface of Myanmar, two great tectonic plates grind past each other at a steady pace, about 35 millimeters every year. This relentless motion is absorbed by the Sagaing fault, a 1,400-kilometer scar stretching from north to south. Along this fault, the Burma and Sunda plates slip sideways, storing up energy as they lock and strain. For decades, scientists tracked minor tremors and measured slow deformation. But much of the central segment stayed eerily quiet, a seismic gap where stress built up year after year. Satellite data and GPS readings showed the land itself shifting inch by inch. In some places, 5 meters of potential slip had accumulated since the last major rupture. The Sagaing fault's mechanics are similar to California's San Andreas, but with fewer barriers to stop a runaway rupture. When the fault finally gives way, the release is sudden and immense. No city built above such a fault can truly ignore the risk. In the aftermath, the numbers told a story almost too heavy to grasp. Nearly 4,900 people lost their lives in Myanmar alone. Entire families vanished beneath collapsed roofs or in the fires that swept through broken neighborhoods. Hospitals overflowed with the injured, while rescue teams picked through the ruins for survivors. The toll stretched far beyond the living. Over 8,300 monasteries, pagodas, and temples, some standing for centuries, were reduced to rubble. Priceless murals and ancient statues disappeared in the dust. Streets once lined with familiar shops became unrecognizable fields of debris. Each name on the casualty lists, each shattered landmark, deepened the sense of loss. In cities and villages alike, survivors wandered through what remained, searching for loved ones and remnants of a world that no longer existed. The shock of so much gone so quickly left a silence that settled over the region, heavy and unbroken. In February 25, a cluster of tiny earthquakes flickered across a quiet stretch of the Sagaing Fault. Dr. Thandar U, a leading seismologist at Myanmar's National Earthquake Center, watched the data with growing alarm. Her instruments showed a micro swarm, dozens of small tremors lining up along a segment that hadn't moved in decades. She drafted urgent memos, warning that the fault was locked and primed for something larger. Instead of support, she faced silence and resistance. Authorities worried the warnings would trigger panic. Internal emails circulated, advising staff to downplay the risk in public statements. Dr. U's calls for action went unanswered, and within days, she received threats cautioning her to stop alarming the public. After the quake, her frustration boiled over in interviews. "We had the data, but not the power to act." The warnings were clear. Only the will to listen was missing. In Bangkok, over 1,000 kilometers from the epicenter, the shaking barely registered as an emergency for most. But beneath the city, thick layers of soft clay acted like a giant amplifier. At 1:03 p.m., the unfinished State Audit Office Tower in Chatuchak district began to sway. The motion matched the building's natural rhythm, each oscillation growing stronger as energy bounced through the basin. Within seconds, the elevator core cracked. Floors pancaked down in a roar of concrete and dust. 92 workers died, with more unaccounted for. The collapse stunned engineers. Bangkok wasn't supposed to be in danger from a distant quake, but the soil had turned a distant disaster into a local catastrophe, forcing every city in Southeast Asia to confront its own hidden risks. In the wake of destruction, a new urgency swept across Southeast Asia. Regional agencies began drafting plans for a shared seismic early warning network, with ASEAN technical teams meeting monthly to hash out sensor standards and data protocols. Engineers in Bangkok and Mandalay pored over collapsed structures, pushing for building code reforms that finally addressed soil amplification and cross-border risks. In rural Myanmar, architects studied traditional designs, weighing how flexible materials and low-rise forms might offer affordable protection. The drive for readiness had found momentum. On March 28, 2025, a magnitude 7.7 earthquake along Myanmar's Sagaing Fault killed nearly 4,900 people and left 28 million in need of assistance. Historic documents and seismic records confirmed that the region's vulnerability was well known, yet early warning signs, like the February microquake swarm, were not acted upon. Internal memos and threat reports to seismologists remain partially classified, leaving questions about missed alerts unanswered. The collapse of Bangkok's State Audit Office Tower, hundreds of miles away, demonstrated that Southeast Asia's risk extends far beyond national borders. While evidence of a formal 2026 ASEAN seismic agreement is lacking, official statements confirm renewed regional efforts toward preparedness and building code reform. The cause and impact of the 2025 disaster are clear, but the fate of future warnings and the transparency of seismic risk remain unresolved. Today, the evidence demands vigilance. The lessons of 2025 are written in the records, and the region's next response will be judged by its actions, not its intentions.